episode of Crafting with Cosplay Fabrics. My name is Indra, and today I'm going to show you how to troubleshoot fabrics that fray easily. So you guys may be already familiar with some of the brocades and some of the other fabrics from the Yaya Han Collection from Cosplay Fabrics, and I have gotten some comments about how they fray super easy. So real quick, I just wanted to let you know that the reason why this happens is because this is a synthetic fabric. It's not natural fibers. Most natural fibers don't fray as easily just because they have a little bit of more grit to the threads, whereas with synthetics, they're very smooth. So, of course, you know, if this were like real silks and stuff like that, this would cost so much money. So it's awesome to have sort of like a replica that, you know, cosplayers can still work with and it'll still look and photograph beautifully. I love these fabrics so much. But I know that for some people it might be a little bit difficult to work with them. So I wanted to kind of guide you through stuff that you can do so that you work with it a little bit more easy. So it's not so problematic. First thing that helps is if you use pinking shears. These are those types of scissors that look like they are zigzag. So when you cut your fabric, it'll help with some of the fraying. However, that doesn't mean that it won't continue to fray, but that definitely helps. I do recommend that when you're using any sort of patterning, if you're using any of these fabrics, that the minute that you are cutting it, you work the edge of the fabric. That means you either fray check it, use zigzagging or serging the fabric or anything like that so that your fabric is ready to work with. I know that the more that you handle the fabric, it continues to fray, so you want to do that as soon as you cut it. Also, consider that when you're working with any pattern to add like 3/8 to 1/4 of an inch extra outside of like your pattern so that you have more space to work the edge of the fabric before you actually start putting all of your pieces together and putting your garment together. So I wanted to show you two quick things that you can do, and one of them is serging your fabric and the other is zigzagging your fabric. Okay, so one thing that you can do is do a zigzag. So I have my fabric, and as you can see, it's like the edge is fraying a little bit. So just cut your fabric to whatever it is that you want, and I'm going to set my machine to a zigzag, and I'm trying to make it so that the length is just a normal amount, like nothing super huge and not really tiny either. So for my machine, that's a 2. And then doing a pretty wide stitch. So I'll do a 5 on that one. And so what I want to do is put my foot down. And what I want to do is make sure that the zigzag is going 1 stitch is outside of the fabric and 1 is inside. So I'll lower my needle and do that to show you. So that's what it should look like, and that should help you with some of the fraying. Once you have this, then just cut off all these little extra hairs, and that should help with what you are doing. So here is my serger, and this is the little piece of fabric, and what I want to do is just try to get it right on the edge. That way it doesn't cut off a lot of the fabric, but there you go. And that is using 4 threads on my serger. And I find that this is the sturdiest method because and the cleanest method, I should say, because it instantly cuts and sews the fabric. But it will chop off a part of it, like a little piece of it. So that's why I always recommend that when you are cutting your fabric that you add an allowance of 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 of an inch. You can always remove more fabric, but it definitely helps. So here's a comparison of both of them, and this is the serged one, but I understand that not a lot of people have sergers, so I do recommend that if you don't have one, to just use a zigzag. Of course, this is just a sample, but in your actual garment, make sure that you do lock your stitch. And if you want to make your the zigzag a little bit wider, that way it catches more fabric, totally up to you. You can try and see. It helps to first cut, then sew, and then get rid of all like the little hairs like after it sews. That's something that you don't really have to worry about with the serger. It's definitely a great investment, but if you don't have one, don't worry. You can always use just a zigzag, which is just as good. So I hope that helps you, and I hope that this answered your question about how to work with fabrics that fray easily. This can be used for any fabric that you find that frays super easy. And maybe this will give you some insight as far as to why this tends to happen. But if you have any other questions or concerns about specific fabrics, products, or anything that you're not sure because maybe you haven't worked with it for a long time, or maybe you have questions about it, or even from Cosplay Fabrics and the Yaya Han Collection, or anything, sewing, crafting, whatever, if you want to, I can make a video for you. I want to help you, and that's what we want to do with these videos. So if you have any suggestions, any questions, or anything, please leave them in the comment section below. Or if you'd like to, if you are a little bit shy, you can feel free to message me. All my information is in the info box below as well. I hope that you like and subscribe. I hope that you find these videos helpful, and I will see you next week for another tip, trick, or tutorial featuring Cosplay Fabrics. See ya!